Everybody, this is Here Comes the Spider-Cast number 6, covering Spider-Man comics in December 1980. I am your co-host, Mike L., and I'm joined by...
Josh Murr, and today we're going to be starting off with The Amazing Spider-Man number 211.
Right.
And in this story, we see Spider-Man helping out Deb Whitman's uncle. He is bringing some equipment out to the ocean where he has a run-in with the Submariner.
Right. Submariner, technically the first Marvel superhero.
Right.
Isn't that exciting?
Yeah. It's kind of nice to see Spidey and Submariner team up again. Mm-hmm. And it always kind of seems like the Submariner is like this, always rides the edge of being a bad guy and a good guy.
Totally, yep.
So it's always fun when he shows up and kind of causes trouble for everyone.
Sure, yeah. I did think he was a little bit out of character in this comic, but we'll get to that later.
Okay. Yeah, I think that all in all, this comic was pretty solid.
Okay.
The art was pretty good. The story, again, was pretty basic, but it kind of had all of the beats of a comic book story, especially a Spider-Man one. So I thought that, yeah, it was okay.
Yeah. Okay. So written by, it's funny. Where are the credits in this thing? Does it have credits?
I was just gonna say that there are no credits in this one. This one is written by Denny O'Neil,
as usual. Yep.
And is drawn by John Romita Jr.
and inked by Jim Mooney, whom I love.
So I think the art in this one is very solid.
Absolutely.
Really love the art in this one.
And like Jim Mooney I've never heard anyone talk about him, but we've mentioned him before. He's a classic DC artist. He did mainly Supergirl. He had a run on Ghost Rider, and then here he is. He had a lot of sort of sporadic work on Spider-Man around this time, but he gives the book a really classic feel, especially in the eye. I've always noticed the eyes. Mm-hmm. He draws eyes really well. And obviously with John Romita Jr. early on in his career, the art is totally solid. You're right. Mm-hmm. The story is, it's been done before with Submariner. He sort of gets, something goes wrong with humans, sort of pissing in his cornflakes, and so he kind of wants to kill everybody again.
Right.
It's definitely not bad, but I don't know. Not spectacular.
I feel the same way. Like it's like, this is what I would expect from a comic book. Like it feels like a comic book story, and it kind of has all the beats of a Peter Parker story as well.
Yeah, a little bit generic, and I don't know if you noticed this, but Spidey is an asshole again in this comic.
Yeah,
okay?
Yeah, he kind of is.
I wrote this down.
Well, we start off with him kind of being a little bit of a jerk too, with like his neighbor who's playing music. I mean, I guess rightfully so. I think if somebody was singing at the top of their lungs at 1 a.m., I'd be a little ticked off too. But he leaves him kind of. Sorry.
It just doesn't seem very Peter Parker-ish the way he handles it, eh?
Yeah, like banging on the wall,
pounding
and you
on
can
the door,
see
on the
that.
wall, yeah.
That like it actually breaks, like the drywall is busted a bit.
Yeah,
and
he's the white guy that punches drywall.
Yeah, he's the resident Kyle of this comic.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
But then after that, we get a pretty funny gag, I thought, with him being so tired that he like leaves his pants on and jumps out the window. It's kind of cute, I guess.
Good stuff. Yep. Yeah, that's almost like a Woody Allen gag or something. But anyway,
right. But yeah, and then so I noticed the last time we talked about Spidey kind of being out of character and a jerk was also when Deb asked him to help out her uncle, and then now again he finally shows up. He's like, oh, I guess I'll do this. So
I know, it's so what is this?
I got nothing better to do. Okay, sure. He gets there. He's like, nah, sorry, that's not my problem. Ocean? No, I ain't dealing with that. And then leaves, and like totally brushes this guy off like he did with Deb. It just feels so out of character and weird.
Yeah, That's what I mean. It's like Denny O'Neil. I don't know. I mean, I know he's got this reputation for being this great writer, but he really messed up Wonder Woman. He didn't do a great job on Superman, and now he's kind of screwing up Spider-Man. So I don't know. I just really question his reputation, you know?
Right.
Like right here at the bottom of page 7. Sorry, but it's not my kind of problem. You're talking Deep Blue Sea, and I'm strictly a city boy. Good luck and goodbye. What?
Yeah,
that's
so
Spider-Man?
weird. It's also like it would be different too if maybe he was nice about it, or if they came up with another reason why he couldn't do it. Because then later on, you have that talk with Aunt May, and he realizes that, you know what, he does need to do this because he has the ability to do it, and if he doesn't try, then he'll never know if he could have done something to help out. Which is a really good plot point, I think, like a really good kind of beat in the story where they can kind of teach a lesson. But it took Spidey being a jerk to do it, so it just doesn't fit.
Yeah. It's almost like they're going back to the Amazing Fantasy, you know, the origin of Spider-Man, where he was a dick to that, whatever it was, business organizer. But it's like, no, he's already gotten past that. He doesn't act that way anymore. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like regressing him. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because then he ends up kind of in a roundabout way helping out, but it's kind of weird the way he does it. Going back and sort of offering to help these guys, but it's just kind of strange the way it all happens. Like showing off by lifting up these boxes and...
Yeah, I was going to say that too. Like, even the way he does help out, he's kind of still a jerk. Like, he shows up and starts showing off and kind of like... Yeah.
Forget these losers, Mr. Whitman. Yeah. We can run the operation ourselves and won't even ask for a salary, much less blood money. Anyway, it's weird stuff.
Yeah. But, yeah, and then after that, we get some fun action with Submariner and Spidey. And I really love... on page 22 of the digital, 21 of the original, we have this really great page with Spidey and Submariner wrestling with each other, and the top right corner, that panel, like it's a really dramatic, like greenish yellow lit panel of the Submariner's face, and he's very serious and shot like appalled, and it's such a great panel, I thought. And then right after that, you get Spidey's response, and he's kind of like trying to reason with him. I thought it was really good. They had a lot of great art in this last end bit for sure. So
it's almost like a little bit of it's addressing pollution with like this new doohickey that they have that they want to use, but basically Submariner is explaining to him that it's actually going to cause more harm than it's going to prevent. And so Spidey says, this gizmo is supposed to supply power for our needs, not louse up yours. And so basically he realizes that Submariner was kind of wrong, or that Submariner was right and he was kind of wrong. And so, it's kind of like a done-in-one story. And it's a nice little story. The way it gets resolved, it's not as quick as Denny O'Neil has been doing in other stories. Right. But it is kind of weird. I'm always puzzled by these stories where it's like, okay, so the story's over, it kind of ends, and then Submariner's flying away, and then there's this final panel of Spider-Man scratching, and he's like, yeah, first though, you got anything for an itch that just won't quit? Like, did that come from somewhere? Was that set up? Like, what the hell is he talking about?
Yeah, he remember he picks up the barrel and crushes it or something in the when he first goes to see Deb's uncle. He beats up those thugs, and they smash a barrel on him, and it's full of brine water, and he's itchy from then on out.
I didn't even notice that. Where was that? Okay.
Let me find what page that is.
Okay, then that's all on me because I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it's page
gotcha.
8 of the digital. Yeah.
See, I didn't know what that is. What is brine water?
I think it's just ocean water, I think.
Oh, just like salt. Okay.
Like salty, like water with creatures living in it, I guess. I'm not sure.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm Googling it right now.
Right.
It's a high concentration of salt in water.
Okay.
Huh. Anyway, so kind of again, it's like, yeah, definitely not a bad issue, and I think the art really saves it because it gives it that classic feel. But when you kind of get to the end of the story, you kind of just, yeah, nothing really, not to say it has to change, but you don't really learn anything new. Nothing really changes. It's kind of just status quo.
Yeah.
And the thing about Submariner too is that I think what I feel about his character is, I don't know if this is good or bad, but in Marvel, it seems like whenever you touch base with a character, they're kind of always in the middle of something, right? Because they've usually got their own series going on, and so you're sort of catching up with them while they're in the middle of something. Something's going on, but in this story, it just feels like generic Submariner. Like, it's like there's nothing specific. Like, this could have been a 1962 Submariner, 72, 82. It doesn't matter,
No, for sure.
So for that, it's a little bit generic, like an episode of like a cartoon. Or something,
Yeah, I can feel that, and especially contrasted with an issue we're going to be reviewing in a little bit with Marvel Team Up when he runs into Fantastic Four.
Yes,
They're kind of in the middle of this like fancy like get together with a bunch of rich people.
Right.
So you kind of get an idea of where they're at that time.
Right. So yeah, overall, not a spectacular issue, not an amazing issue, but definitely decent. The art makes it good, so I would give it, I don't know, 5-ish, maybe 6 out of 10.
I was gonna say, I think the art itself would bump it up to a 6 for me. Like 5 would be just average. Like it's it's a comic book, like it's a Spidey story, but I think just the art would bump it up to a 6, where I think it's just a little bit above average.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
For me, so yeah. And then next we're going to be talking about Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man number 49.
All right, sure.
All right.
So this was my favorite of the bunch.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, as usual, I love Roger Stern. Like, it just feels like the richest story, the most thought was put into it. You're getting a lot of Spider-Man's, supporting cast, and I don't know. I mean, the art doesn't quite have the classic feel of the other ones.
Right. I was gonna say that. Like, it does kind of feel.
It's weird though because it's penciled by Jim Mooney, who inked the other one,
which is weird, right?
Love.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's inked by Bruce Patterson, who I only know, I think, from Wonder Woman, the Wonder Woman reboot from '87. Okay. But maybe it's the inks that just make it look a little bit less classic. But even if you just go to like, it's got a nice big splash page, which I love. And then if you go to the second page, you can see it's got that classic, I guess it's more of a DC style, but if you can see like the shot of the guy walking in, and they're talking and back and forth. And, it's very... I mean, it's not Kirby-esque. It's definitely DC-esque, but it's very clear and concise and easy to follow, and I don't know, I really like it.
Yeah, I definitely noted that, like, a lot of this beginning, there's a lot of detail in the city.
Right.
Like, which, I mean, even just the sets alone, like right from the first few pages of them in the office, and then walking down the steps of the building, and like walking around the park, and then even like running through the alleys and everything, and the wide shots of the entire city. It's just a lot of detail, I thought, that was put into this, which is not normally something that's important in Marvel Comics.
Well, and you remember was it last month we did the Craven story? And we were talking about how some of the backgrounds there was no backgrounds. And like whenever they'd be in a wide shot, it wouldn't look right. They'd be, right? It'd be awkward. But in this, you can see like even just on digital page 4, which is original 3, like look at the detail of the cityscape, like you said, and the alley, and like everything is in its right place, and it's just, I don't know, like it doesn't, and it's not just a matter of like filling in detail. It's a matter of it feels like they're walking in a real environment.
And you can like see what's happening. You can follow the action just by the set alone. Like where they are in the set. It's not this kind of ambiguous white room with white floors and white walls and nothing.
Great point. Yeah. He knows exactly the geography of the sets that he's in. Yeah. Like whether it's an office or a street or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
And it almost makes you wonder if they did put that much thought into it, where they, drew a little sketch of exactly where they would be and plotted that out, because it is that well done.
You know what's funny? You should mention that, is that there's a scene in the comic where Spider-Man is riding on top of a van. We'll get to the story in a minute.
Right.
But there's a point where he actually comments, darn it, where is it? Where he actually says...
digital page 6.
Okay, where he actually says, you know what I'm talking about, right? When he says, oh, crap. Oh, because we're entering an area where the buildings are farther apart, harder to swing from.
Right.
I think that's great, because any other Spider-Man story, he just swings forever.
Through. Yeah.
Yeah, like in the old Spider-Man cartoon, he's swinging above the buildings,
Yeah.
He's swinging across the river. What does he attach himself to? But in this, they actually put the thought into it, because this is probably an exact street in New York. And so it was just cool that they actually incorporated that into the story. Mm-hmm. I thought that was great.
They kind of almost gave him new problems, because that doesn't really come up very often for Spider-Man. I mean,
right,
down to the not being able to swing. And then, like, it was kind of goofy in the story the way it happened, but it was still kind of nice to have another obstacle. But when he's trying to throw the tracker onto the van and it hits the bird...
Yes,
like
exactly.
It's goofy, but I don't know why it worked for me, because it was just kind of like adding to like another thing that would just pop up to stop him.
Right, I noticed that too. It's like another little obstacle, because why does things should not always go right, especially for Spider-Man, right?
Right.
Yeah, those little things really add up. So this was kind of a weird story.
Yeah.
So he's hanging out with his buddy Phil, who's Asian American, and they're walking down the street, and then this guy, Phil looks over and he says, "That guy, that's Tommy Lee. He's a member of the White Dragon gangs." And then there's a thought bubble. Uh-oh, I've been spotted. And then the next panel, the guy is he's kind of just trotting away.
Right.
And then we get a gigantic speech where the guy goes, "The White Dragon and his gangs had all of Chinatown terrorized." And then it goes on and on. Okay, first of all,
if you saw...
Yeah, like 10 feet away from it. If you saw a member of a gang, is that really what you'd be doing?
Yeah, is scream,
you know what I mean? Be
and
running
point
for cover.
to him.
Yeah.
Gang member.
Yeah, exactly. Ridiculous.
And also, they want to do this whole chase scene where they're chasing him down, but he stops to give Peter this monologue about this gang, which is hilarious. Which means this guy must have been really walking away slowly.
I know, eh? Because they show the next panel, and the time it took him to give that huge speech, they've gotten like 2 feet. You know what I mean? Like they've only walked a distance of 2 feet, and the guy's still right in front of them. It's ridiculous.
It's a full 4 bubbles.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
and at one point he says, "Come on, Pete, I once took a vow never to raise my fist in anger, but I can still grab that guy and hold him until the police can be called." Ridiculous. But you know what? It might just be a matter of the art doesn't quite match the writing. Like maybe the writer was Roger Stern was thinking, okay, well, this guy's going to be like, 80 feet away, running as fast as he can, but the way that he's drawn, it just looks like a little trot, right?
Right.
So that could be it.
I think the only problem I had with the art and staging in this comic was on this page, on page Digital 4, when Peter Parker is climbing up the wall. Okay. It looks like there should be no reason why his friend wouldn't see him.
Yeah.
Because I guess he's standing, he's like climbing up the corner of the building, and he's definitely standing next to the building. It's not like he's past it, right?
Yeah.
This is the only moment where I was like, what is happening? Why is Peter giving this away? And then I read the next panel like, oh, where'd he go? I'm like, wait, you didn't notice that?
I think the only thing I can say is that if you were walking down the street and you were with your friend and they disappeared, you wouldn't think to look up because you'd never assumed they climbed up a building, right? So that could be the reason. But yeah, so then he goes on this chase, and then it gets even weirder because then this gang member ends up contacting a guy who's in a helicopter, who's also, I guess, part of this gang, right? Or he works with them or whatever. And so they have this weird chase scene where Spider-Man is jumping on top of these cars and vans and stuff, and then it kind of cuts over, and so we reveal the kind of mastermind behind the whole thing. This character called the Smuggler, who I only came across before in the Marvel Universe, and I guess he used to be called... He was another character called Power Man. and he fought
Oh,
Luke
okay.
Cage Power Man. Yeah, he fought Luke Cage when he was called Power Man. They were both called Power Man, and then because he lost the fight, apparently he wasn't allowed to be called Power Man anymore. So now he's called the Smuggler.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was curious as to like what his deal was because he doesn't have any powers, right?
Well, I think he's strong, but I'm not sure.
Okay, because I think there's even a line in here where he says, well, at least I have some power of my own. If Spider-Man messes around with me, he's going to get stopped. He's going to get stepped on. But then they don't show his powers. Like, I mean, maybe he has, like, super, like, stamina because Spider-Man notes that he gets knocked down and then just kind of jumps right back up.
I'm gonna look him up quick here. Oh, apparently he was also another Goliath.
Oh, interesting.
There's like 3 Goliaths. There's like Goliath, Black Goliath, and this Goliath. I forgot about that. And then later he became Atlas. Anyway.
Right. And didn't Clint Barton become Goliath at one point too?
Yes, you're right. So this guy's like Goliath 3. Yeah. And then there's plus Black Goliath. Okay, so I guess so obviously he had the Pym particles, but other than that, I guess I don't think he had anything other than look at this. Okay, so when he was Goliath, he was super strong. But other than that, I don't think he had anything.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway. Yeah, so I've always liked his color scheme though. He's got a cool costume.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Almost like a Shocker kind of color scheme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny because I did really enjoy this, but kind of looking at it again, I realized the story is a little bit, I guess, hokey. But I did enjoy it when I was reading it,
Yeah, I think that this one was like the story I wasn't a huge fan of while reading.
Okay.
But like only the Spider-Man part of it. I really kind of liked the White Tiger half.
Okay. The backup story.
Right.
Okay,
So the backup story, I think I normally would have really, really liked it, but
sure,
it was narrated the whole time, which narration isn't always. Well, I'm not a big fan of narration, but if you're going to start off a story with a narration and then fade into showing us what happened rather than continuing that narration, I think it works better. So the first half of this was kind of mixed, I'd say. Then at the end, it kind of got better with White Tiger, especially when he shows up at the end.
Well, we should point out that it's very unusual at this time to have a backup story, and I didn't even know this was coming, but yeah, this issue has a backup story by Roger Stern, and let me just see, the art here is Dennis Cowan, who is kind of most famous for doing, he did, what was it, The Question in the late 80s, and he also ended up being a founding member of Milestone Media. Do you remember Milestone?
No, actually.
It was a DC sort of imprint, but it was partially creator owned, and they're the ones that ended up creating a bunch of superheroes, but they're all black, African American. And one of them, the most famous one, was Static Shock.
Okay.
Which they turned into a cartoon, and blah blah blah. So anyway, Dennis Cowan was one of the founding members or whatever. And so, yeah, the art is definitely decent. The writing's decent. It's just that it kind of came out of nowhere. And it's also odd because in the splash page, it says, Stan Lee presents a bold new miniseries. And this is not a miniseries. It's a backup, right? So I wonder if this was created as a miniseries and then they killed it and then just thought, we'll just use it to fill a few pages in the back of Spider-Man. Yeah.
And do you know if this is something that's going to I assume that White Tiger is going to appear in the next Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man.
I assume
that would be the reason to add something like this.
Oh, you mean like come into the main story?
Right.
I don't know because I haven't looked that far ahead. I have no idea. Yeah. So we shall see. That's a mystery. Yeah. But I did want to point out that as far as the main story, it ends on a absolute non-cliffhanger. If you remember, They've been fighting for a few pages, and then Spider-Man just holds him up in the air, and then he's thinking to himself, "Great move, Spidey, but what next? I can't keep the smuggler at arm's length forever, but if I put him down, the fight will start all over again.
Goodness.
What's even more, eventually the strand of webbing will break down, and he'll be free. Nuts! I've got the smuggler right, but what do I do with him?" That's the cliffhanger. Not very strong.
It's so goofy. Like,
yeah.
In that last panel, Spider-Man's got his like arm all the way up, and he's holding up the smuggler, and the smuggler's kind of like on his back, and his arms and legs are flailing around like a turtle that's been flipped around and can't flip himself back. Like, it's just
ridiculous.
Goofy. Yeah,
and you know what? I'm tempted to flip ahead to the next issue and see what happens, but I'm going to wait until next week because I don't want to spoil it. So yeah, I guess, you know what, I'll agree. It's not a great story, but I think there was a lot more thought put into this story than in the Amazing story.
Sure, yeah.
So yeah, for that, I'm still going to give this a 7 out of 10. I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty solid. Yeah.
All right. I guess
that leaves us with
Marvel Team Up number 100.
Yes.
This was written by Chris Claremont, and we have Frank Miller and Bob Wycek.
Yeah. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but Wycek or Wycek. But
he's usually an inker as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah.
I was expecting a lot because that other annual was so good. The one by Frank Miller. Not quite as good. What did you think?
No, and you know what? I thought that it started off so strong too. Mm-hmm. I was really a fan of how it was going. I thought that the first few pages were just great. It starts off with a fun splash page, and then the next page it has these like 5 panels, and they're completely vertical. They go from the top to the bottom of the page, and it's just the next page is also 5 vertical panels, and it's just it's so, I thought it was so great to start off this story with kind of like some action and some suspense and introducing you to this new character that's kind of intimidating, and you're wondering where this is going to go. You're introduced to Karma, which is a new character who's being introduced in Marvel Comics, and she is trying to mind control Spider-Man, and it's kind of this struggle and fight within his brain, and she's just so menacing while she's like at the edge of this building in shadow, and like you can see this kind of like this blue like spark coming from behind her as she's using her mind control on him, and he's gripping onto the building and sliding down, and they really make great use of the vertical tall panels, because Spider-Man's holding onto the edge, and then the next panel is like these finger marks all the way down, and you just kind of see his hands at the bottom, and you can tell he's really struggling. It's sliding all the way down and losing this fight. And I just really, really enjoyed the beginning of this, and was know, really optimistic going in. And then you have the classic hero kind of misunderstanding another hero, and they have to fight each other, which is kind of a superhero comic trope in itself. I don't know, like we've read tons of comics just in this series alone where two heroes meet and they fight each other when they first meet, and they realize, oh, we shouldn't be fighting, we're friends. Oh, I didn't realize.
Well, yeah, and you're talking about the FF at this point, right? Where he runs into the FF, So just so in case anyone doesn't know, Karma ends up becoming a founding member of the New Mutants. Right. And is initially their leader. And then it's really weird because I recently reread those first couple years of New Mutant stories, and she kind of disappears and then never really comes back again. Like, she definitely comes back, but she's just marginalized. Yeah, like she comes back sporadically and kind of just, I don't know, it's just kind of a weird way to handle the character. But it was just, I got to give Chris Claremont props because, you know, even as early as the late 70s and early 90s, he was, at that point, Storm was the leader of the X-Men, a black, African woman. And you had the leader of the New Mutants was a Vietnamese woman. And then when she left, people usually remember Cannonball as the leader of the New Mutants, but at the time he was co-leader with Mirage,
right?
Who was a indigenous person, indigenous woman. So it's kind of interesting, something different.
Yeah.
But anyway, interesting character. So the premise of Karma, we learn, is that she... Oh boy, this is complicated. So she has like a twin brother that has the same powers as her.
Right, and they kind of battle it out, and Karma's really only using Spider-Man to save her little brother and sister.
Right.
Who are being kept by her twin brother. So the only reason Spider-Man is being mind controlled at all is so that he can go in there, she can use him to go in there and save her brother and sister. Right.
And it's a very detailed backstory that we get, drawn by Frank Miller in a strange kind of, it's a style, it's a little bit more abstract. It's more like shadowy, kind of similar to almost what he did in Sin City, but also the style he used in what was it called, Ronin. So kind of interesting, way to contrast it with the present day stuff.
It almost looks like a chalk kind of style, if it was drawn in chalk and then like scanned or Xerox or something into to make copies of it.
Right.
But I thought this was really cool. Yeah.
And the thing is Frank Miller has teamed up with Chris Claremont in other stories. Their most famous collaboration was probably the Wolverine miniseries. Have you read that?
No, I don't believe I have.
Oh my God, it is excellent. Okay,
really? Okay.
It's so good. It could be Chris Claremont's finest hour. Like the writing's great. Like I believe that's the comic where Wolverine got his famous catchphrase, "I'm the best there is at what I do."
Right.
But what I do isn't very nice. It's so good. It's the basis for the second Wolverine movie, The Wolverine.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they completely messed up the ending, but still, but a highly recommended story. And in any case, so I did expect more from this, but it just didn't seem to click.
Yeah, it had a lot of really great elements, but it didn't fit together very well. And I think a lot of that has to do with the ending. I think with having Spidey fight the Fantastic Four again,
right,
just didn't work because I was just we just saw it. We just kind of went through the same thing, and I definitely would have rather have seen a battle between Karma and her brother, and kind of see that kind of dynamic, and have her end up solving the issue, which she does come in and save them, but in a very anticlimactic way, I'd say.
Right.
And kind of a weird ending with her absorbing her brother into like more power for herself, and she kind of has like a yin yang thing going on. So yeah, I think that there's some really great, interesting characters that were introduced. Some fantastic art with a great backstory. We have some fun stuff with Spidey and Fantastic Four, and it seems like it would be something that would work so well, but for some reason it just kind of doesn't end up sticking the landing at the end.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So not nearly as enjoyable as that other Frank Miller issue we did.
Right. And I mean, talk about Spidey not acting like Spidey too. He smashes through a church window and starts beating up a priest. Like, what the hell is going on?
I don't know if that was Frank Miller's influence or what. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
sure
weird.
What's happening there? But a weird issue. But again, funny enough, this one also has a backup story.
Yeah.
Also, is this one by... Yeah, this is Chris Claremont and John Byrne, who, of course, are famous for their lengthy run on Uncanny X-Men that included the Dark Phoenix Saga, Days of Future Past. I'm assuming you've read that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is around the same time. And this is basically covering... this is, I believe, the first time that we find out that Storm and Black Panther knew each other back in Africa. Because, as you know, all black people know each other, especially in a continent that's bigger than, Europe, China, and the United States combined.
Right.
But whatever. So yeah, this is. You know what? Actually, I want to comment on the art because I'm not a huge fan of Chris Claremont, but this is his early style. That's probably my favorite era,
Right.
and it's inked by Bob McLeod, who is a great inker. And I'm not just saying that because he's my Facebook friend, but the inking is excellent, and it really gives it a nice polish. You know?
Yeah, there's some really great shadow panels
Yep.
with some great shadowing, particularly when Black Panther first is shown in his costume when T'Challa walks out through the curtain. He's got this like fun shadow over top of his face, and then the next page when they first see their robot when they open the door, like there's some really great stuff.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and also on digital page, what is this 33? I just love the texture of the. I guess it's like the wind and the energy from Storm. It's just really, really polished. You know, like a lot of time was put into this, and it shows.
I really like the contrast too of the lightning. There's kind of like a lot of detail and line work in like the clouds and the wind.
Yep.
And then the lightning is like some solid lines with blank space in between them, so you can really kind of have that contrast between the lightning and the storm clouds.
Yep. Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, this story was used to justify. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but it was in the mid 2000s that they ended up marrying off Storm and Black Panther.
Yes.
Which again, you know, Marvel's only got a few really prominent black superheroes. Do we really have to marry off two of them? You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Kind of irritating. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the story itself, but I guess not essential reading for me, but it was at least cool because it was Claremont Byrne and again Bob McLeod really polishing up those pencils. So it was definitely a decent read, just not great.
Yeah, I think it felt really out of place too paired with this story.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's why I was kind of thrown off a little bit by this, but yeah, it definitely wasn't bad by any means. It was just kind of, I was just thrown off a little bit by it.
Right. Like I'm not sure what it was doing here.
Yeah, and it was definitely more of a serious tone compared to the Fantastic Four Spider-Man team up.
Right.
I mean, even at the end when they defeat the robot, they go into the room and the guy that was controlling it is sitting there dead.
Yeah.
And like they show him a few times and they comment on it.
So I guess in a way, it's good because it's unexpected, but other than that, not great.
Yeah.
So, a strange issue of Marvel Team Up.
Yeah.
Not great. Yeah, unfortunately, like, I mean, I've always been on the fence about Claremont. And this issue is definitely of questionable quality.
Right.
So I don't know what to give this one. I mean, I guess I can give it a 5.
Yeah.
Like obviously the art stands out in both stories. The art stands out, but the writing in both is subpar. I think.
Yeah, and I wonder too if maybe it was the fact that they had extra pages and extra time to tell the story, so they stretched it out to be longer than it had to be.
That could totally
because there does seem like there's a lot of filler and a lot of unneeded stuff in Team Up number 100.
Right, and. The first story is 31 pages. I think at this point, most stories were 22. So, there's like 10 pages of filler. Right. They could have easily cut out the fight with the FF and Spidey, right? Like, they didn't need that at all.
Yeah.
So, not a great issue. I don't know if you know this, but Claremont and Byrne actually had a really long run on Marvel Team Up as well. Did you know that?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah, like 30 issues, I believe.
Ooh.
I could be wrong with that, but nice long run. Unfortunately, it ended before our, cutoff point. So we'll have to get around to that when we do our sequel Spidey Spider Cast, but whatever.
Yeah.
That's a few years away. So basically, that's pretty much it. That wraps up this month. Overall, kind of a strange month. Like we kind of are in between writers on Marvel Team Up, right? Because we had Stephen Grant, and then we're moving towards, I think, Tom DeFalco. Denny O'Neil is in the middle of kind of his weird run on Amazing, and then Peter Parker, kind of I guess for Roger Stern's typical standards, it's not a great Roger Stern issue, right?
Yeah.
So overall, a strange month for Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And next week, we will be covering Amazing Spider-Man 212 featuring Hydro Man, Marvel Team Up number 101 with Spider-Man and Nighthawk, which I'm really looking forward to, and Spectacular Spider-Man number 50, Alone Against the Aliens.
Yeah, and that's going to be January of 1981.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's right.
So it'll be
we finished up 1980.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that'll be next Monday. Here comes the Spider-Cast. And what else? Write us. Share it.
Yeah.
Share the videos. Tell them what to do.
Yeah, find us at Comic Book Syndicate on Facebook. Or you can also find us at Comic Syndicate on Twitter. And, yeah, let us know what you think of the episode, about the issues. We'd like to keep that conversation going, so we definitely want to hear from you.
All right, we will see you again next week on Here Comes the Spider-Cast.